Welcome back to Cool Club's headquarters here in Scottsdale. We're back with Tom Olsavsky and Mark Tim. Sorry, I was caught up on your name there. With big Cobra Golf again. We're going to go back into AeroJet. This time we're going to touch on the Fairways and the hybrids, and then we're going to also take a look at your Forge Tech hybrid.
Exactly.
Where do you want to start?
Well, you know, a lot of the carryover really is the family structure is the same in terms of the fairways having 3 heads with the drivers. There's not an aerodynamic story in the fairways and hybrids, unfortunately, because they're all small faces.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about aerodynamics. But
as much anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one thing we started playing with, because Bryson has a 3-wood that he plays. His 3-wood is 10 degrees.
Oh, man.
So we did some testing because our friends at the USGA were proposing a bunch of things about drivers and whatnot. We said, you know, everybody keeps saying, well, make it a small head and it'll be better. And I said, I don't know about that. I think if you make a small head, it's going to be faster because it's less less drag, right? And it's really, the drag equations are really, frontal area is huge.
Right.
More frontal area is a big function of how much drag you have.
Driving a brick down the road, whatever.
Yeah.
Flat surface is not the good thing.
It's a Mack truck versus a Tesla or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So no aero story in the AeroJet fairways and hybrids. But back to the Bryson test, we did this test with this. We built a 10-degree 3-wood at driver length, and we tested versus a 10-degree driver at driver length, and the club speed was faster with the 3-wood head.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now way smaller face.
Exactly. Yeah. Now it is harder to hit. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Off the tee, but it was a faster swing speed for sure.
Yeah.
So
how much, out of curiosity? I mean,
it was like a mile and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, with a 100-mile-an-hour swinger.
Oh, well, even at Bryson speed.
Yeah.
Even 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, we did it with our regular guys, not him.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the one thing and I probably led that off the wrong way, but we don't have the AeroJet with aerodynamics in the fairways and hybrids. But we have everything else. We have the power bridge, power shell, hot face, sort of the 3 different setups in terms of the structures. We also have movable weights in 2 of the 3. So we're really excited about those. And I think it's interesting because, you know, you say, well, if you just put the same thing in the driver and the fairway, isn't it an easy design project? It says no, because one's titanium, one's steel. Yeah. They weld differently, they flex differently, they sound differently.
Weigh different amounts.
They weigh different amounts. You know, the weight part, if you think about CAD these days with us, the easiest thing for us to do is adjust weights.
Yeah.
Because the CAD guy just tweak a little bit here or there. The challenge is the structure, the sound, the feel.
Sound's a big one too.
Yeah.
And how you put the baffles and where they sit in there, it makes a huge difference.
Right, yeah.
It's a whole different science, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a deep science. And we have a supercomputer we bought about 5 years ago we've been using for all that kind of stuff. And the fun thing about the supercomputer is the old FEA analysis files used to take like 4 to 5 hours to do a structural analysis. Now it takes 12 minutes.
Wow.
So we could do a lot more studies in a much shorter amount of time. So hopefully that, you know, it gets us to a final product sooner. But the hard part of these things, honestly, Mark, is always welding and manufacturing and polishing and stuff like that. That you got to go and figure out how are you going to put it together. You know, because you got a great face, you got a great body, but if you don't weld them right, you got a bad head. So the challenge of the power bridge structure was the same that we saw with the drivers. Is we want to keep the weight low and forward. We want to have a flexible structure. But if you remember, a lot of our clubs had the baffler technologies in the fairways and hybrids.
Yeah, 2 rails along the bottom.
So that's kind of hard to weld that power shell face into something with rails.
Yeah.
And early on,
a round surface or a flat surface,
right?
You know, it bumps up and down. It's difficult.
Yeah. Now we could have done it, and you go machine it, but it would be very expensive. So that was the one thing we decided a long time ago. Is hey, we see performance benefits with these structures. Let's go use them in the best way possible. And if we have to move on from the rails for a little bit, we'll do that. So that's the main difference you'll see.
Doesn't sound like you're giving up on that idea forever.
Well, you know, one of the things is we know that rails are good for people who are typically steep and hit behind the ball. Right. And how many golfers hit behind the ball with their fairway or the hybrid?
Especially with the fairway, who's just trying to hang back and get it going in the air.
Yeah. And even to the point of Ricky still likes rails because him and Butch have been working on this for years. Like, you better be steep with that 5-wood, right? Yeah. If you're trying to pick it, you don't have a good shot. Go be aggressive with that shot, right? So steep down through the ball. The rails actually help you quite a bit with that. So one of the things we did, though, to kind of keep some of that playability is we put a little bit of a ski toe on the front of the sole. And you could design fairway woods a number of different ways. You can design with a really tight radius up there. And that theory is, keep it below the ball and all this kind of stuff. And it actually looks a little bit like it's easier to hit. Some people have done it over the years. You can make a very blunt edge, you know, and you've seen guys where that functions a lot like a rail system. where it's blunt. It's almost like a wedge bounce too for the
what
same
we're talking
thing.
about is this here, right?
Actually,
rolling this more.
this way. That. So
Okay. Rotate.
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
put a little
this way.
ski there.
Right. Okay.
Just a little ski surface, about 10-degree angle lead in there, so that it performs a lot like a rail would perform in terms of not getting you a tight edge that's cutting in and digging.
Yep.
Yeah, because you want a little bit of bounce, and you don't want bounce in the back because it makes the head sit close. So you got to put
Right. That's a big issue with Fairways. Yeah.
Yeah, so we call it a ski leading edge, and that helped us solve a lot of the problems that we thought we might have. So at that point, then it's all how do you weld the thing together? How do you put how do you cast the power bridge? The power bridge in the Fairways is about 39 grams of steel.
Oh, it's a fair amount.
Yeah, it's good. The drivers, it's about 13 because it's tie.
Right. Yeah.
These are 39.
It's over 10% of the head weight.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, over 50.
Not quite 10. I mean, the head's 200 grams,
Right. Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
20%.
That's what I say. Well over 10% of the
yeah,
head weight.
yeah,
Yeah.
So we build that in and then weld the structure. So the whole goal, like we talked about with some of the driver stuff, is more flexibility,
Right.
more flexibility low on the face, more flexibility on the sole, and all going to give you more speed. So that whole goal is also keeping the weight low and forward. And we all have learned over the years, a lot of times we talked about fairway woods, hey, let's put the weight way in the back. At some point, you can get too far back.
Right.
But the best performance you can get is really actually you got plenty of loft on a fairway wood typically.
Yeah.
Low and forward actually helps get the ball pretty quick, and you reduce spin. So that's really the
Well,
recipe.
definitely drop spin down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've also seen sort of another trend that goes along with the driver trend of hitting it far, is that many times you see a lot of the fitters will talk about, hey, I want this player to hit the ball as far as possible off the ground. The
Right.
3-wood is
Yeah,
their longest club off the ground. So you're not holding anything with it.
Right.
You're just trying to hit it hard up the fairway.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's a good point actually, and that's something I bring up a lot with you got seniors and ladies, and even myself and stuff. That can't reach a lot of these par fours. One of the most important clubs in the bag is the one they hit the furthest off the fairway.
Yeah.
Because they're hitting that all the time. Every par four that's longer, they're hitting it off the fairway. We're trying to get as close to the green as possible. Right. And it's the hardest club to fit as well. Obviously, the longest club you can hit off the fairway. So it's
And it's in
the
that
longest club with the shortest tee and no tee.
Yeah,
and
no tee, no
difficult,
man's
right.
land. You're not
So-
trying to trap it too
But that's
hard.
a really important club, and I get seniors and ladies and stuff all the time that want a driver fitting to gain 5 yards. And if I get 5 yards on the driver and 5 yards on the fairway wood, that's 10 yards closer to the green. So that club's important.
And for some of those players, they probably hit 3-wood every par 4.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So they'll hit it, a dozen
And some
times
par
around.
threes.
Right? Exactly.
And maybe twice on a par 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the whole trend in fairway design the last 4 or 5 years has been we're okay with a little less spin. We're not holding greens with 3-woods. If you really want a shot to hold a green, it's either 5-wood, 7-wood, or hybrid, because those are designed with plenty of loft.
Even
to be
tour
able
players
to
are
do
going
that.
to 4-woods a lot, or high launching fairway woods because they hit them
7-woods.
too far.
7-woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. DJ had a 7-wood in the bag, I think. And I'd play with a 7-wood. I get it. If you got a specific hole, you just want it up, and you want the forgiveness of a fairway wood hit.
Right.
Launches higher than a hybrid does off the bat.
And
so.
I think fairways are making a bit of a comeback too, to some extent, because basically, your equivalent distance. If you got 3 hybrid at 19
Yeah.
degrees, that goes about as far as a 7-wood at 21 degrees, and the 7-wood goes higher, it holds greens better.
Right.
It's a little easier hits, longer, which is your downside. But as far as getting in the air, it's easier. So
That's really all I basically want to fit in is if someone's a better wood player, they strike a wood and don't even think
there's
about
nothing
it.
wrong with 7s and 9s.
I just throw a 7 in over a hybrid and it's easy.
I found also it's a lot dependent because the shafts are different.
Yeah.
One's an iron shaft with a 370
Right.
tip. One's
Tend
a
to be
metalwood
stiffer,
shaft.
go lower.
They definitely play different.
Yep.
Many years ago, one company that Craig and I worked at, when they first launched hybrids, they offered them both metalwood and iron shafts, which was kind of interesting because there were tour players playing some with metalwood shafts, some with iron shafts.
Yeah.
Depends on what you wanted to do with it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, but they play very differently.
You don't see it very often anymore, but when hybrids first came out, there was a lot of people that steal shafts in their hybrids.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's irons. And it's just kind of gone away now. But
Exactly. The other thing we talked about a little bit is that power shell face is now in all the fairway woods. That was a technology we've used in our irons for over 5 years. Right. And it was something that we were dying to get it into the metal woods because we felt like there's performance there. And so that speed is definitely beneficial, especially since fairway woods often the miss is low. And the miss is low, you still want more speed no matter what, because as we talk, if you can just roll it farther up the fairway, that's still better than what you had in the old days. So
yeah, now on the LS, you got 2 weights, right, forward and back.
Exactly.
And they are stock. They come, 3 and
12.
And 12? Okay, so you're moving a fair amount. It's 9 grams. You're moving back and forth, basically.
Right. Yeah. And the
You forget
idea,
that. You think you're moving 12 grams. But if you got 3 on one side, it's actually 9. It's the difference that moves.
you're good at math.
Once upon a time.
The nice thing about that design too is if you remember some of those in the past, it's a very shallow structure of curvature on the sole.
Yeah.
So the problem some of the old designs had was if you put weights heel and toe very far, they start getting too high.
Right.
If you look at these, they're still very low.
Yeah, they're definitely
in the structure.
Yeah, they're definitely going. You see them on the top line and stuff. They're back and they're down, so they're not really affecting the turf indirection at all.
Yeah, and we're not sacrificing any CG going up by having movable weights farther apart where they actually are noticeable.
Yeah.
And then the next one, I guess, is your standard one, which has just the weight in the back.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's your deepest center of gravity, most forgiving, easy one.
Well, the Max actually is the deepest.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is even bigger. So you've got basically 3 sizes and 3 different ones, right?
And then we do the same thing as we did with the drivers on the bridge, where the bridge structures are slightly different depending on which model.
Does CC change through the models?
A little bit. It's actually interesting because the LS one is a little taller face.
Right.
And so they're all about 170 cc's,
Yeah.
give or take a couple.
Oh,
So,
I got you. So basically just flatten it out, basically.
yeah. So, but visually, the LS will look a little smaller,
Right.
but volume-wise, they're all the same. I wish people would throw out volume on metalweights because it doesn't. The volume doesn't matter. It's what's the address area.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little footprint.
That's what matters because you could mess around with face heights all day and make one look bigger than the other.
Yeah.
So they're all
Yeah,
about the
CC
same.
doesn't have anything to do with the bottom, too, and it could be carved out or whatever.
Exactly. So again, Max will be our most forgiving. Again, we added some more draw. That's about 5 to 6 yards more draw than the last Max on the fairway. We don't get people have quite the same push on fairways to fix the slice like the driver, but it's still there because we know that
Still exists, that's
a
for
good
sure.
Market. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you get people hitting down and they
Right.
coming
So
over.
you say you
and
got
hit down
5
on it.
more yards of draw on the fairway wood, so
Right.
you're going from what was 5 now to 10 or 15? Yeah.
It was probably
Quite a
like
bit more.
It's probably like 3.5.
Yeah. And then hybrids. So the AeroJet
And you got a couple
hybrid
there.
is a bonded.
Yes,
Yeah, that's this
the
one.
standard AeroJet is bonded. This has PowerShell as well. We've had PowerShell in the Tech Hybrid. This is the first time bringing it into the main line. We reshaped this one a little bit, trying to get a little bit more of that iron setup up front. When you see people now, you talk to some players about hybrids, they definitely want it a little bit more square of a face. So
Yeah,
we
these
tried
don't
to
look
square
shut.
that up. Yeah.
And what do you do?
Ball.
Pull the leading edge back a little for that?
Yeah, actually, it's really some of the radii. Like if you look low heel, low toe, you're trying to straighten out that leading edge so it's
Yeah.
not as rounded.
Yeah.
And again, trade-offs, right? And if you look at the market, I joke with the guys in the office sometimes. I said, if you look at any given feature, I draw the pie chart and it's a peace sign, right, or a Mercedes sign. It's
Right,
like most golf preferences are a third, a third, a third.
Yeah.
You love it, you hate it, not a big deal. And so, which bucket are you in on the shape of the face, the shape of
Right.
the head? We know
Which ones are the
golfers.
important ones?
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
And some people are very particular about shape and look.
Oh, yeah.
And some people don't really care.
I used to be super particular. Like right now, I should hit a shoebox with like 5 yards further. So that's kind of going out the window at some point in time.
What's your story with AeroJet in terms of? I feel like you've got to pick a lane when you're designing a hybrid nowadays, right? Like, are you trying to hit the longest hybrid, or are you trying to get one that sticks on a green?
Well, one of the things that we learned is we used to have our MyFly sleeve in those for a while.
Right.
And so when you had the MyFly, it was great because you could be in the middle of the road and you adjust the lofts and all that kind of stuff. And eventually we decided to take it out for a number of reasons. One of them is people weren't using it very often, and we weren't really getting credit for it and some other things like that. And when we did that, we actually took it out and just left the loft the same. And it was interesting because I think that was maybe the Speed Zone iron that we brought out back then when we did that. And I can't quite remember that. But when we took it out, it was actually 6 yards short of the iron. The 4
Really?
hybrid became
Really?
short of that because you couldn't make it stronger, and irons have gotten stronger.
Yes. That's
And
right.
so that was the trade-off. Oh, okay, what's the goal? We're like, oh, gee, it can't be that short because usually we do combo sets, And so if you did a combo set and you stopped at the 5 and you put a 4 hybrid in there and it was only 5 yards longer than the 5 hybrid, people would say, what the heck is wrong with your hybrid? But in reality, that was where the
In
loft
line with
set
it.
up.
Yeah.
And we didn't quite catch that until we got too far down the road. So we said, well, let's make them a little stronger. And what we've done at Cobra, we feel like distance is really important to people. Even though they say they love feel in their irons and feel in their clubs, a lot of people still buy distance. And I would say that's probably not as much of a prevalence as people you get at cool clubs, but it's probably most of the mass market people, that really just give me something that goes farther.
Yeah.
Because if you give me the technology that goes farther, my swing sucks anyway, but the club goes farther.
I'm further down there. And there is a correlation between distance and playing better, right?
So we've really been on the kick with our game improvement irons, our game improvement hybrids. They got to be competitive. You know, if we're in a battle with some of the big companies that are in front of us, and you're on the range, and you're comparing 3 clubs, we got to be competitive. If we're not competitive, if we're 3 yards short, you lose all day. Yeah. You could tell them all you want about it goes higher and it's more playable. All this garbage.
I struggle with that in iron fittings and stuff too. Because I mean, the longest iron isn't necessarily the best one, especially if it doesn't stop.
Always.
Yeah. It's how it gets there. Yeah.
And it's less of an issue in the hybrids because usually the hybrid is the hope I get close to the green club, not the I'm trying to get it into this pin.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So you can get away with a little bit more. So, but we are aggressive and we're trying to be kind of high performance, maximum speed we can get. You know, we're spending lots of energy on fastest speeds possible. Our lofts are right there with, you know, some of the strongest, I would say, in the hybrids, but they're very playable. You know, and the goal always is we don't want to just hit bullets. We want to be playable.
Right.
And one of the things I think that we talk with people a little about is the way golfers visualize product flight-wise and what you see in terms of numbers on the screen. Yeah. Now that we can see a lot of numbers, people, oh, yeah, that's better and whatever. I said, well, it's interesting because a lot of times when you see a club and you see a shot going out, right, if you see a shot going out that's like this and one's a little faster, but they're the same look going out,
right,
you don't think one's low.
No.
Now, if you look on the screen, you might say, oh, the launch angle is low and the spin's low. But if you look like this, they may not be noticeably lower. Right. And we've seen that and said, hey, we're okay with that performance because if people see it and on the course, it looks like they can get it up like they want, we're fine with that. But we are on the aggressive side. And Cobra has a long history of that. One of the things I laugh about with people often is, you know, strong lofted irons. And we talk more about the irons. But
King Cobra,
the King Cobra irons was 43 degrees in 1994.
Yeah, it was a huge thing.
1994.
Yeah. It worked really well for a couple of years, too.
It was great.
Yeah, it was a #1 selling iron for a while.
#1 iron.
And it's, I say, why, you know, probably the majority of the reason why Titleist ended up buying Cobra at that point.
Exactly.
Because they had this, the iron was selling. Actually, some of the guys, one of the guys from the company came in and asked me about it because we were in Stanford at the time. And, you know, what do you think of Cobra as a company? And I was like, well, it's just got a strong iron.
Right.
There's really not a lot of technology in there, but it's selling like crazy. And it did.
My very first set was a set of King Cobra irons from Dad, hand-me-downs, offset things, and I had a baffler hybrid, and I had the driver, the original drivers, was it 370 one that got killed when the trampoline face, all that kind of stuff. So that's a good history of Cobra.
There was an awful lot of King Snakes sold at one point in time.
Oh, that's right. That might have been a #2 model.
It was. It might have been.
Let's jump into Forge Tech before we wrap this up, because it is a different story.
Yeah, the Tech Hybrid is something we've done the last couple years. It actually came from the genesis of the King Oversized Hybrid. I think that was like 2015 or 16, right, Craig? And that was a larger hybrid at the time, but the performance was hot. That was actually the first one that we did the PowerShell in. And it was a unique platform. We wanted to learn some technology. So we've been having a PowerShell hybrid in a long time. And when you have people hit any of those prior generations, like, ooh, those are hot, and they're really playable, and they're easy to hit. So it was a really good combination. And we felt like it was a good spot in the market for us because it's not the smallest hybrid. You know, we call it a better player hybrid, like sort of like the player's distance category.
Right. It's not very similar in profile to the regular one.
Yeah, and it
doesn't look a lot different, to be honest with you. It's a flat black finish, which looks nice. Yeah. Looks like it's carbon.
Yeah, there is carbon on those.
This carbon top, and this is steel.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's got a little more technology. Huh?
Yeah.
That's an advantage. It's also more expensive.
A lot more technology.
Honestly, $20 more is not that much considering you're putting a connector in it and the carbon fiber stuff.
It's way underpriced, honestly.
Yeah. So this is the real fitting tool.
Exactly. Yeah. So 3 movable weights, our MyFly sleeve.
Wow, 3 movable weights.
Great speed, great performance off the face, and it's got good forgiveness, but we wouldn't call it the smallest tour players club.
No.
But we think it's a great spot for the middle of the market for that players distance category. Yeah. And when you go around the office, our office in Carlsbad, almost everybody, even the best players, are playing one of those in their bag because it's just a great hot club and it really dialed in well.
Right. I play a hybrid 19.5 degree. I love it. I hit it way more than I hit a fairway would because it goes long, and I hit it into greens and hit it out of a lot of rough. So it's good.
Yeah. And I think it's a steal. I think it's the best offering. From a price standpoint in the marketplace with that flexibility. Especially when. You guys do a lot of great fitting, but it's also a great tool for you because now you can do some things. And I had some fun with a few guys that came in from the media in the past, and one guy was a good player from England. Was a mini tour level player. It's like, oh, every hybrid I hit, they all go left. I said, oh, okay. So, give him the club and say, wow, that's the first. So, you put.
Most hybrids really are draw bias, and that's getting better. Right. I mean, the pro versions or whatever are definitely toning down, but for a long time when hybrids first came out, they were all heavily left biased.
And that stigma carries over when we have people come in for fittings, and you've really just got to say, just to give that up for a second. Let's hit something new that you've got some tech in. You can adjust, weights in this case, face angles, and shaft. Most people are getting a hybrid and they're getting it with a really soft golf shaft in it because they're intending to get it up in the air, and you need to put something decent in it.
That's getting better too, but when the hybrids first came out, they were all super soft shafts because nobody really knows what to put in them.
Yeah.
It's a new category.
Yeah, what is this? It's 370
noodles, right?
Yeah.
But you're all 370 now, right?
Yes.
For a while there for you. Last holdouts in the 335 and the hybrid.
We've still got one of those out there
in
the
some
market
advantages,
today.
right? It tends to hit it higher. So
a little slingier,
It's a
right?
little slingier, yeah. Exactly.
I get it. Well, great. Well, let's get you back for one more, and we'll do some irons in the next one.
Perfect.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Cheers, Mark.